My name is Seraphina the Masked Lady. I was once human. Since then, I have lived many lives. I have been loved and reviled, adored and despised, been the child of a poor prostitute and a courtesan revered by thousands. When I was a child, a stranger with no face offered me the ability to move between the worlds. Since then, my every death has led to a new life. I once had a true love. He was ripped away from me when I was murdered in the 18th century. I search for him still. In the meantime, I walk in the shadows behind the universe, visiting realms both exquisite and terrible and bringing back stories and rhymes to amaze the mind and enchant the ear. Through my YouTube channel, I send the stories out into the world, hoping that my true love will hear them and reply. Hoping, if he does not, that I will find in the other souls who listen kindred spirits to help ease the pain. What of you, stranger? Did you come here tonight seeking a mystery? Do you hunger for a spark of excitement, for the dark thrill of fear? Will you listen as my tales unfold, knowing that some may very well take on lives of their own? Consider, stranger, whether you have the courage to walk between the worlds with Seraphina the Masked Lady. Hello, my delicious darlings, and welcome to Seraphina the Masked Lady. Let me make you welcome to my wondrous world of shadow and seduction. On this channel, I share the stories and poems I have brought back from between the worlds. Join me for a thrill. Today, as we are approaching my favorite spooky season, I would like to introduce you to a little old village somewhere near the Atlantic Ocean. These days, the village is much like any other, but once, long ago, it was the site of a horror beyond believing. Tonight's poem was written by my dear friend and talented writer, Christina Bray. If you enjoy her work, you can find her on her Facebook author page or her author website. I will leave the details below the video. Do me a favor and give her a visit. So grab a drink and a blanket, light a candle, and settle in for today's rhyme. Curl up in the warm, listen to the wind roaring outside the window, and don't worry, it's only a story, isn't it? The Devil's Dance, the Candy Woman's Curse. Be careful of the candy, my mother always said, fearful that something in the treats would surely see me dead. Each year, she checked for razor blades, for poison, and for worse. But never did she warn me of the Candy Woman's curse. I heard of the curse later on. Then I was 17. At that age, children are ashamed to enjoy Halloween and seek instead for truer scares, for shivers, and for shrieks. Stories of horrors in the dark and rotting flesh that creeps. I sought horror from near at hand, sad stories that were true. Matter that made my soul shudder and my interest rue, and anything that chilled the heart. The candy curse, he said, began 90 long years ago. A woman dressed in red appeared on the streets of our town 3 days for Halloween. So beautiful of form that she could scarcely be believed. She walked alone, spoke to no one, and seemed modest and kind. To one so quiet and gentle, nobody paid much mind. But when she showed her face, each man who saw was besotted, and held all other loves they'd known before as something dead. Even their families disappeared at once from their minds, and when the woman called to them, they left all else behind. To the black woods, they followed her to dance amid the dark. They carried neither lamp nor candle, following the spark of red lit in the woman's dark eyes. The woman danced with each, though when they tried to press her down, she circled out of reach. None of the men thought how their wives would cry or of their child, but sought to possess the woman so beguiling and wild. For 3 long nights, they followed her with gifts and oaths of love. They offered her life, heart, and soul. They swore to God above that they'd give anything for her. Oh, thoughtless, foolish, mad. Too soon, they'd know what they had lost, being fickle and bad. Too soon, they'd wish they had turned home to their welcoming bed. By seeking more than they'd been given, they'd lost all instead. While their fathers were far from home in chilly woodlands green, the children of the town were preparing for Halloween. Times were hard then, and food was scarce, but on Halloween night, the children all stuffed themselves with food, dancing, and delight. They'd made their costumes from paper and wax and bits of string, awaiting with fast-beating hearts the time of Halloween. When the night came, their mothers waved precious offspring goodbye. In those days, it was not thought strange for kids to roam the night without an adult by their side. Shrieks of glee and delight were heard across the sleepy town as children filled the night, and knocking on the waiting doors showed off their costumes fine. With gasps and cries of loud applause, they were greeted each time. With gifts and waterfalls of sweets, they were all rewarded. From house to house and door to door, the giggling children sped. At first, that was all that took place. Then the woman was seen, a scarlet beauty beckoning children on Halloween. She gave the children who answered armfuls of sugar treats. None of the youngsters in the town had ever seen such sweets. Delirious, they gorged on them, not waiting to get home. At first, they felt pleasure, but then their mouths began to foam. The children shivered, and they shook. They crumpled to the ground, mouths stretched open. They tried to scream, but could not make a sound. That bitter night, the women of the town had cause to moan. They waited, but few of their children ever returned home. Their men were slain, found dead in the woods by the morning light. Of the children, there was no sign. The deers had vanished quite. The women mourned. None knew the cause of their bleak misery. So life marched on a 12-month more. On the next Halloween, there were no haunts, no tricks, no treats, no decorations bright. The women locked their doors and cursed the now unholy night. Those who kept their homes locked up close would come to bless that choice. For, when the clock struck the midnight hour, one mother heard the voice of her lost baby calling her to come out to the street. The child was hurt, in need of help, and had come far to meet their mother, true and beloved. The grateful one rushed out to find horror and painful death before she could cry out. After that, others heard the call. Some answered quick, arms wide. They raced outside expecting joy, but soon they screaming died. Others stayed hidden in the dark, afraid to meet the calls. They listened as their neighbors died from behind their brick walls. One woman peered through her window, and there she saw a sight that stole all sense from off her tongue and made her hair pure white. The children had returned. It's true, but not as they had been. They were twisted, deformed, and dark. Their faces made her scream. The children no longer had eyes. Their mouths were gaping holes, set with teeth sharp enough to rend the fabric of men's souls. Their hands were claws with needles tipped. Their screams were like rung bells. To look at them was to feel you stood on the brink of hell. The woman lived to write her tale, but her future was sad. The horror of the demon kids had turned the woman mad. Days and years passed, and those who lived struggled to comprehend. Finally, they came to believe that the woman in red had not been a woman at all, but the devil himself, come to earth to add the innocent children to his wealth, and that the sweets she'd given out on that Halloween night had turned the children into monsters to give mankind fright. The town survived, though few know how. New lovers, children born, brought fresh life in, but none forgot that bleak November morn, when so many had lost heart and hope. They never ceased to weep. When Halloween time came around, they listened for each creak, each light footfall of a young one upon the street or stair, praying that a mortal babe, not a monster, tarried there. It was agreed between them all that nothing could be worse than the night when the devil had brought them the candy curse. That was the tale my friend told me. The next Halloween night, we decided on one last carouse, one final rout of fright. We put our prepared costumes on and headed out to seek, along with the young and the wild, a treasure trove of sweets. Although the grinning pumpkins proved that it was Halloween, we no longer thought of the tale of when Satan was seen, until, when on the edge of town, we looked into the night. Not sure we had time to visit the last house to the right. There, where the dark shadow began, stood a woman in red, a cruel smile upon her face.
"I've sweets for you,"
she said. So, what do you think of the Candy Woman's curse? If you enjoyed today's inaugural story, please consider joining me for further transmissions from the shadows behind the universe. Over the centuries, I have told my tales in many ways, but I admit that YouTube is a new technology to me. I plan to upload a new episode every week. Still, until we get things settled, the best way to avoid missing a story is to hit subscribe and click the notification bell.